Well, hello. Hello, Gilberto. My first guest tonight, today, depending on where you are. Welcome to the pre-Halloween edition of my live stream here. It's a it's pre-version. Next week I'm going to have even more. Today I've got well, this pumpkin. I've got this pumpkin too. So this is just a friend I decided to have join us today. I've had friends join in the past, and this one's going to be my friend to join me today. I might have some other friends if you come back next week for the official Halloween episode, but today I thought I'd just do this. I think next week I'll probably do some Halloween themed animation for the Twitch stream too, so you don't want to miss that. Hey Rushback, welcome. Hey Renato, thank you. So as always, I always like to make sure that you guys can hear, you can see, if everything's looking good. Then we'll jump right in and start talking animation stuff. But yeah, so this is my pumpkin friend. I got my two lit up friends here on the walls. And my name is Scott Claus. I'm a 2D animator from way back. I worked at Disney and DreamWorks, and then I worked in CG animation on some films at DreamWorks before crossing over into CG animation creature effects at a place called Rhythm and Hues. Worked on a lot of really fun, cool movies. And you can check out my list of films on imdb.com. If you check out Scott Claus on IMDb, you'll see all the stuff I worked on. And part of the stream is if you ever want to talk about any of the films I worked on, I'm always happy to share stories as long as they're stories I can tell. But I'm always happy to talk about stuff, anything that you like. And one of those is the movies I worked on. If you have a favorite one that you've always wanted to know about, a little more about behind the scenes. Again, if it's something I can talk about. So that's one thing, but I'm also at your disposal to talk about any old thing you like. Mostly we want to talk about 2D animation today, but again, since I've done other forms, CG animation, creature effects animation, I've taught them, and even After Effects and other software platforms, we can talk about that stuff too. I'm here to serve. I'm also here to promote CG Spectrum. So CG Spectrum's an online school that I work for, one school I work for, and they do online classes that teach you how to do CG art. So the title of CG art encompasses all sorts of things. Digital painting, concept art, that's a really exciting program we have. They also do video game development and art. There's a whole class. They're doing streams on Unreal Engine. I know everybody's excited about that. So you can catch one of those streams, whatever channel you're currently watching this on. That's where they're broadcasting other streams from CG Spectrum too. And I know that Unreal Engines are always exciting, and then ZBrush is pretty exciting too. People want to know about that stuff. 3D animation, there's a stream about that. And then all these are represented by classes at CG Spectrum. All right, how's that for my hard self for the night? I won't keep going on like that, but I just wanted to let you guys know that you should check out the CG Spectrum website if you're at all interested in taking classes online, including they have 4-week trial periods periodically. You can try out a class and see if you want to take the class or not, pay for it or not. I mean, if you want to take the class, you got to pay for it, but they have free trials so you can get a sample, and including 2D, which is what we're talking about today. So I'm always curious to know if there are any 2D fans out there who are watching this, and if you want to talk about things that you like, projects, what makes you like 2D, please feel free to let me know in the chat and know and find out, what are the things that you're excited about as far as 2D animation goes. And while you're doing that, if anybody's interested, then I'm going to we'll put my friend away here for a little bit, and we will, I'll kind of show you what I'm going to work on tonight. But like I said, please feel free to talk about whatever it is you're interested in, including what sorts of animation projects you like. So Kim's are it, if I'm saying that correctly. Me. Nice. Cool. Well, welcome. All right, so and welcome from YouTube, and welcome from all over where you guys are from. And yeah, so right now, like I said, I want to show you what I'm working on. So what this is this is a scene that I started a long time ago. I've been working on this for a while, so if you've checked in one of my other streams, you may have seen this. I'm almost done with it, but I thought it was worth going through one more day with it. And basically I was trying to capture the essence of a couple things. One was Mickey Mouse. So Mickey Mouse in Sorcerer's Apprentice from Fantasia. I always thought that was really cool. The way that the robe flops around and the gloves make things really articulated, and the pointy hat and things. So I did get to draw Mickey Mouse. That was the first thing that I ever worked on, was Mickey Mouse in The Prince and the Pauper in 1990, I think it was. Short thing. I think you can find it on YouTube or around. Probably Disney TV now. Disney probably, they own it, so they probably want to just show it there. Anyway, so Mickey Mouse is one of my inspirations for this little scene. Another one was this character called Avatar, and Avatar was a wizard who was in a film called Wizards from 1977. Ralph Bakshi. Ralph is known, he's still around, for doing irreverent stuff. And I actually know an animator, famous legendary animator. I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to name drop too much, but I know a famous animator who was responsible for training me initially at my first job. And he said that he went to work for Bakshi because he just loved this film, Wizards. It's different, it's weird, it's got some good animation in it, some not so good stuff. It's rather violent. It was definitely a little more adult, and as a kid, that's what I liked about it. Well, yeah, Rushback, that was Fantasia. So I thought, well, I'll try and animate something that's really bouncy and floppy and has a lot of potential for overlap and follow through and squash and stretch. And so I chose this Avatar guy. That's his name, Avatar. It's not an avatar, it's just what his name is. He was the head wizard, but he's also very cynical and cartoony. And what I'm doing isn't really Avatar exactly. I didn't want to plagiarize it. I mean, I suppose the little star and the wizard cap and the nose and the no eyes and stuff, this is going to be a dead giveaway. But by the time I'm done coloring it, hopefully it'll look School of Bakshi, School of Avatar, but kind of a mix of the complete animation of Mickey Mouse with Avatar. There went my haunted house pictures, so the ghosts are definitely in the house tonight. All right, so yeah, so the combination of these things are where I got the idea for this, and now I'll just play the scene for you so you can see what it's looking like. So this is how the scene currently looks. So you can see I got the bare feet from Avatar from Wizards, the star and the cap, which, technically speaking, they probably got that from Mickey Mouse in the first place. Although, my understanding is the character of Avatar is based on something called Cheech Wizard from underground comic of the 70s. So anyway, this is what I did with the character. This is based on older animation that I did many years ago, and I mean many years ago. I'll show you that real quick. It looked like this. And so the idea was that this was a wizard who was in a room, like his wizard's cabin or something, and then I was going to have something magical happen with this fairy or pixie or whatever. So I don't know if I'll ever get to that, but I really just thought that the move itself was kind of fun. And I thought, well, this will be a fun one to do. That's really quick. I can do it in the stream and clean it up and paint it up, which always looks cool, and make it look really pretty and put it against a background. So look for that in coming weeks. This is probably my last day working on this on a live stream. I want to get onto something else and keep people entertained. But this is an ongoing project and should be finished and look real pretty when it's done. So back to just the rough version. If you look at this, you'll see that it's a lot different. I've changed a lot of things. If I turn them off and on, you'll see the original one, there wasn't a lot of overlap and follow through. It wasn't all that floppy, and it was a little more stiff. It's because I was young when I did this. I'm not young now. This version is the one I'm sticking to. And so it has a lot more overlap and follow through, which I talked about in other streams, where I talked about the changes that I made to this and tried to make it look a little bit more a little more floppy, a little more fluid, and a lot more solid. So yeah, there you go. I'll let you look at that. It looks like we've got some questions here. So Kim's ready. You say, well, when do you usually stream? It's 5 a.m. right now. Yeah, so here in the States, I'm in Los Angeles, it's approximately 8:15, and I apologize, it's 5 a.m. I know we are an international school. We serve people from all over, and we are currently hiring new mentors so that we can address people who might find this a little bit earlier, even though it's getting late over here in the States. It's not late at all, it's early. I stay up really late and teach international students. Yeah, so right now it's about 8 p.m., so it's 5 a.m. where you are, wherever that is, and I'm glad you found us. If it's complete luck you found us. You're involved in 3D animation. Yeah, I did 3D animation for several years, many years, working on things like, well, yeah, I can say it. So Shark Tale and Over the Hedge and Flushed Away for DreamWorks. And then I went on to do creature effects, which was Golden Compass and The Tiger from Life of Pi, and a lot of monsters for a film called Cabin in the Woods. Speaking of Halloween, that's a fun little film if you like stuff that's different. And Rushback, so it's 5 a.m. for you too, huh? So thanks for joining me, even though it's really early, or maybe it's really late for you. I can certainly understand that. Any animation person worth their salt is used to staying up all night and working on their projects because they just love it so much, right? Or maybe we're just all crazy. Anyway, so Rushback 99, you ask, when do you decide to draw every frame and then every second frame? So let me just show you real quick if you're interested. What I'm doing right now is I am working on the keys for this scene. I'm going to pull some things out of the toolbar a little bit so you can see this a little bit better. And then I'll be able to show you that what I'm trying to do is make it look as smooth as possible with as limited amount of work as possible. And so right now, if I click through the keyframes on this, well, click through the keyframes on this pass, on the rough pass, you will see that it doesn't look that smooth, does it? And that's because, obviously, if you know anything about animation, which it sounds like you guys do, then you know that these were my keys. This was my key pass, and if I was to play this at speed, then it would look pretty choppy. It wouldn't look all that smooth. And so the next thing I did was I went through and I added breakdowns. If you look on my screen, you can see that the keys are represented by red ticks and the breakdowns are represented by blue ticks. And breakdowns are just that. They're just breaking things down into smaller pieces. Again, if you guys are taking animation classes, you know this stuff. But for anybody out there who might be watching who doesn't know this, that's what we're doing. Keyframes and then breakdowns. So now I'll scrub through or play through this, just go frame by frame and play for you what it looks like with the breakdowns. And if I play it pretty fast, you can see that it's starting to look a lot more smooth. But at a certain point, I really do want to make a decision about how smooth it's going to look. Now, just between you and whoever's watching this, if it were anime, I might use less frames because that's a specific style. Or if I'm doing limited animation, like you'd see a lot in the 70s, then maybe I don't mind if I leave it like this and leave a lot of choppiness. But I'm used to working at Disney and DreamWorks, and I have it in my blood. I like the smooth stuff. And so if you look at mine, you will see that I put some thought into making it look a little bit more smooth. So you have extra in-betweens here, like in this case. So when I went and filled in the in-betweens, I did an extra one here because I wanted that to look more smooth. The more drawings you do, the more smooth your animation is going to look. But Disney and the gang, Walt being Disney, Walt Disney and the gang, they figured out that you could do a drawing approximately every 2 frames. So you do one drawing every 2 frames, and it still continues to look smooth. Now, Disney would also use a lot of what we call ones, where you're doing things on every single frame, which is what Maya does, by the way. You know, Maya, you're using every single frame. But we figured with persistence of vision, we being the universal animation people, persistence of vision fills in the blanks, and you don't necessarily have to do things on every single frame, which doubles the amount of work, right? 24 frames equals a second, give or take, nowadays with video speeds and stuff. 24 frames roughly, and then of those, you probably have to do about 12 drawings, or a combination of still poses and things moving to make it look like it's running smoothly. And then anything after that, it's up to you. Richard Williams, who I was going to talk about a little today, Richard Williams, he liked to do things on ones exclusively. He also had a hard time finishing his projects because they were so complicated and extensive and dense with drawing. So if you know about this, The Thief and the Cobbler is a famous Richard Williams project that he couldn't finish, and so he got it taken away from him and had another studio finish it. So Treasure Planet was a movie to inspire you to become an animator. Well, that's great. That's really exciting. The Treasure Planet was not a hit when it came out. It was at the end of a long line of 90s 2D animated films, and I'm guessing the public had just kind of moved on and was getting bored or something. I don't know. I don't know why that wasn't a bigger hit. We all liked it. We thought it was great. But it just didn't catch on. And it was when CG animation was really taking off. So I don't know why that didn't take off, but I'm glad to hear when people embrace films that weren't successful. One that I worked on was El Dorado. So The Road to El Dorado was not a hit. In fact, it was a big flop. I think the biggest flop I worked on was at DreamWorks was Sinbad, the last one we did. And it was really hard to see these films come out, and people just were like, eh. And one of the things that I teach in my classes in animation is how difficult it is to make an animated film. So we should all appreciate when one comes out, and if you like them, you should support them, because Hollywood will make whatever people will pay to see. I say that all the time. So yeah, I'm glad you like that one. So I'm going to get started now and start working on the cleanup while I yammer away. So what I've done now is I've cleaned up several keys on this. I'm going to try and finish the keying tonight. So these are the cleaned up drawings that I did based on the roughs. I'm going through and I'm changing things as I go based on final decisions I make in the cleanup process. I may have to go back and fix even more things once it's done, but this will at least get me started. So I'm putting a nice clean line on it, and hopefully these drawings will look nice and pretty when we're done. So I'm just going to jump into that, but yes, please continue to ask questions or talk about the things that you enjoy. Nice to hear that you like Treasure Planet. Maybe you liked some other things as well, or maybe there's something about Treasure Planet you liked. We're always happy to hear that stuff, because then we know what to do with future projects. But yeah, Treasure Planet was well, it was a fun one. I remember I went to an event as that film was being worked on, towards the end of the time when the film was being worked on, and Glenn Keane, another animator, I can't remember his name, really good animator, but real quiet, not one of the celebrity animators, John somebody or other. They were doing a demonstration of how they both would draw on the same sheet of paper at the same time, or at least in the same. Glenn worked on the big burly guy, whatever his name is, Long John Silver or whatever. I can't remember his name. It's been a while since I've seen it. And the other animator worked on the kid. I think I really don't remember these guys' names, sorry. Anyway, they did a demonstration at a big theater in Los Angeles showing us how they were able to work together on these scenes and do and animate at the same time on big sheets of paper. It was really fun to watch. I don't know how practical that was. I always kind of snickered at the idea of, it's like millions of people, or thousands, have made animated films without having to do it that way. But I appreciated the spirit of it. I thought that was really fun to see them doing something kind of different, where they were really trying to make it an organic process of communication between two animators making the same scene. Usually what happens is animators work on their own character exclusively in 2D, and not in CG, not in 3D animation, but in 2D, I'll go off and I'll work on, like my character was Pocahontas in the Pocahontas film. I worked on that character along with lots of other people. And then somebody else would work on Miko, our little animal companion. And that's the way it traditionally would work in 2D animation, is you're off in your own corner and you're doing your own thing. And then they put it all together eventually. So you have to coordinate with the other animators, but it wasn't until I saw them doing that on Treasure Planet, Glenn Keane and John, can't remember his last name, that I saw how you could work together on the same scene with two different characters at the same time. Again, kind of silly, I thought, but it was interesting. It was fun. Well, hello, Dried Skull. Welcome back. As you can see, I've got my Halloween motif. I've got my pumpkin, and then I've also got an owl. I'm going to have a lot more next week. I don't know about a lot, but I'll have more things to share next week. And then I've got my dancing pumpkin, which I had earlier. I'll bring that back in a minute for anybody who's just joined us or interested. But yeah, so we're just talking about Treasure Planet. I was asking about other projects, other animated films that you guys like, that inspired you, that make you love animation, and that maybe you want to do yourself, something in that style. I'm always intrigued to hear about these things and see what it is that got you going. At CG Spectrum, we are in the process of trying to put together an anime team, people who can teach the anime style of drawing characters, and maybe even some of the unique things that you encounter when you're an official anime artist. So we've got somebody lined up. You guys are going to be really excited for that if that's something you're interested in. We've got somebody lined up who's going to be joining the CG Spectrum team soon in the 2D department, who is a wonderful speaker and a wonderful person, and can talk extensively about anime as something that's separate but equal. And that's the way I like to look at it. Frankly, I know a lot of people that I worked with, people in my generation who worked at Disney, who kind of had problems with anime. Partially, I think they thought it was going to take over. Partly because they didn't agree with the aesthetics with it, because we were all trained in the classic style. And they call it the classic style. I don't know what it's called, but just to try and keep things separate, you'd say, oh, well, this is classical animation, where everything's on 2s or 1s and it's real solid and bouncy. Whereas anime is a little more graphic and based in the sort of the manga style. I love it all. I think it's all wonderful. Well, thank you. Thank you for that gift. But yeah, we're going to have somebody joining us soon, and I'm really excited to share that with you. And hopefully we'll get her on here and do some streams and or have some seminars at least. She's got friends too that I think will be fun to add to the mix. So keep your eyes and ears posted for that. So Rushback, they already talked to you about it. That's great. Good to know. Yeah, we're all really excited. Like I said, I've already talked to her. I think she's awesome. So we're looking forward to adding her to the team and adding others. As the department continues to grow, we have more and more students joining us every day for 2D. So everybody's welcome, and we're excited to offer whatever we can to get people doing the sort of stuff that they're interested in, whatever that may be. We're also about to roll out, I don't know what the right word is. We're rolling out a new program within the 2D department where we're going to be doing the kind of rigged 2D animation that you see in TV shows. So we've got a whole new program, a whole new program separate from the original 2D animation division, but under the guise of the 2D animation department. But it's focused more on rig-based stuff. So that's where and I'm going to probably do a little of that next week for the Halloween edition, is do a little bit of playing around with animation rigs where you actually don't have to draw every single frame of the character. So this that I'm doing this week, this is traditional classic animation, and you basically have to draw every single frame, and it can be very time consuming. It can also be very beautiful, and that's one of the reasons a lot of us still love it, despite the work that goes into it, is because it's got a very fluid, very specific look. And so I think it's all wonderful. As I often tell people, I love all motion graphics, and I don't really discriminate between one style being better or being worse. I was trained to do this kind of classical animation, but I do a lot of limited animation for my own work, because that's the only way I can get it done, is to do limited animation styles. So I was raised on like the Peanuts cartoons and things like that, where you're trying to get the best effect you can with the quickest, cheapest, easiest amount of work, for want of a better word. Well, hello, Jordan. It's nice to see you again. Yeah, it has been a while, hasn't it? And maybe you've checked out on Slack. There have been some updates to things. We've had a contest on there, and I don't know, a couple other things. So I try to keep people updated. So just so anybody is curious, those of you who are Spectrum students already, or you are prospective students who want to join us, you get to go on Slack, where we have all sorts of resources. It's sort of a networking board, and you can stay on it forever, or as long as you're on it. If you drop out after 30 days, you'll drop out after 30 days if you don't keep going on there. So that's for you, Jordan, in case you, just so you know, you're eligible to stay on Slack and reap all the benefits of the jobs board and the other artists and communication. And you can do all that as long as you're still on Slack, if you keep paying attention to it. One of the things we're planning right now, any day now, we're going to get this together, is an open room. So it'll be much like what we do here, where we've got a mentor who just kind of sits and works or does whatever. And anybody can show up who is a part of the Spectrum family, the CG Spectrum. If you've taken classes before, or if you're currently taking classes at CG Spectrum, then you can jump in on these open rooms with a mentor and hang out, show your work. We'll look at your work. We'll talk to you about any old thing. Yeah, and unlike here, where I'm doing stuff and you guys are just going to sit and look, just watch what I'm doing basically, and talk to each other. Which I encourage, by the way. Please feel free to talk to each other in the chat room and discuss stuff at will. I'm happy to leave you alone if you have your own conversation going. But in the open rooms that we're going to have, well, that there, I've already started doing them in CG Spectrum. In those open rooms, you can also share your work, and we can give you feedback on it outside of class. So just something to keep in mind, like I said, for Jordan, who is a recently graduated student, there are still opportunities for you at CG Spectrum if you stay up on Slack, if you continue to check in there, which, like I said, it's a great resource for job boards and things like that. And it's growing every day. We're getting more and more resources as we find out what students want, and as we are able, as the student population gets bigger, we're trying to get more and more things to offer. So check back often. I guess that's the final line. It's such a cliche, isn't it? But it's true. So yeah, just want to make a note of that. Oh, so you guys know each other. Rush back. That's great. Nice to know. Hopefully you guys are hanging out in other streams too. But thank you for stopping by mine. Like I said, next week I'll be happy to share some more Halloween nonsense. I'm working on a Halloween scene for next week, probably of some kind. I have a couple options, haven't decided what yet, but tune in and see if you dare. I know that's so silly, acting like we're all 13, but hey, maybe you are, and if you are, welcome. Yeah, so I'm just going to periodically show this. This is my friend. This is my friend Jack, who's decided to join us tonight. It's just silly, I know. But hey, it is 2D. Now, this is actually a 2D rigged character, believe it or not. It's not the best thing in the world. It's I did it really fast. I just wanted to have something fun for today. I'll have some more characters next week to join us. But I just wanted to have something kind of fun and Halloween themed for tonight, just to say, hey, it's almost that time, isn't it? Anyway, so this was actually made as a rig. So the legs are a rig. And then the body is just a still thing. So yeah, so I don't know. The thing that I'm doing for Halloween is going to be very limited. I'm actually very, very, very busy, and you guys can see how long it takes to do even something simple like this wizard. I've been doing this for weeks, and hopefully people aren't getting bored with it. But like I said, this is probably the last day of it. But next week I have some characters already prepared. Actually, just one that dances, and then the others are still. So I'll try to put something together for that makes it worth your while. But anyway, the point of it is you could do something like this as well. This was not difficult to do, and hopefully you guys have a lot more time than I do running things in the 2D department at CG Spectrum, among other things. So I want to see what you guys can do too. So anyway, just wanted to share old Jack there. I'll bring Jack out periodically in case anybody pops in who hasn't been with us for most of the day today. But also too, I will bring that back next week and talk about it a little bit more, talk about how I did it, and maybe talk about how you might do something like that yourself, given whatever software you happen to have. Cool. But yeah, it's great to see you again, Jordan. Really nice to hear from you. I hope things are going well. And I know that our other friends appreciate seeing a familiar face whenever you stop by. And same with you, Drawn Skull. It's always nice to have friends come back and visit and offer up their takes on things and what you guys like, what you enjoy as far as animation. So watching someone create animation is definitely not boring. Okay, well, I hope that's the case. I try to come up with projects that are interesting to watch. I'm aware that the cleanup process isn't always the most exciting thing, but it's a necessary part of the process, and I did it for years as part of my job at Disney. I spent a long time in the cleanup department. It's something that I don't say often, but I think it's safe to say I became one of the kind of masterful people at cleanup animation. So that is definitely something that I feel confident in saying that I know how to do pretty well. I was one of the top people in the business. There were a lot of top people in the business, but I feel comfortable saying I was one of them. And got to pick and choose the projects and the characters I worked on, which is always fun. And so, yeah, so at least tonight, that's kind of what I'm talking about is the cleanup process. Or at least that's what I'm showing you on screen. And I find it really relaxing. That's another reason I like to do it while I'm doing a live stream is because it's, I don't know, there's something kind of zen about it. When I first learned how to do it, I was taught by a few people, and they would talk about it as like, well, is it really art or is it just tracing? And if you've ever done it yourself, you know that there is definitely an art to it. That it isn't just tracing. Even tracing, you need to be able to do it with a flair that shows you're an artist. However, if you are interested in becoming a 2D artist, and you've always wondered, well, how do I get better at my drawing skills? So I can draw in the style of the characters that I like. It's twofold. One, you need to be a fine artist in general. You just need to study. You need to do a lot of life drawing and practice at your craft. This looks terrible. Practice at your craft and keep practicing. Draw from the real world. Draw animals, draw people, anything that you can find that's in real life. Cannot stress that enough because that's something that I didn't do when I was younger and something that I see a lot of my students resisting sometimes. Not a lot, but it's natural. You want to just draw things that are fun. And so I encourage people to draw from real life. That's the first and foremost thing you should do. And then secondly, you should try tracing characters that you like. But don't just trace them, trace the line quality, trace the style. Look for what makes that different. I spent hours and hours and hours. Now, granted, it was in between projects at Disney, and we had the archives available so I could study the original artwork. But I spent hours trying to figure out, well, how did they draw, I don't know, Pinocchio? How do they draw Disney's version of Alice in Wonderland? Because it isn't easy. They spent a lot of time putting those things together. And so to get to be able to draw them, you have to really think about it and concentrate and follow in their footsteps and see how they did it. So if there's a specific style that you like, and I know there is, if you like 2D, there's got to be a style that you like the best, then you should try practicing drawing those characters. Just trace them. Just trace them right off and see how you see how they did it. See how you feel about the way they did it. Seen the new trailer for Raya and the Last Dragon? Yeah, I did. I saw that. It looks really cool. In fact, I have a friend, I think I've talked to you guys about it, my friend who did Lucas the Spider. He was showing it off. He just finished up on that film, and he's real proud of it. And I think it looks fantastic. So, yeah, I'm real excited. Are you excited about it, John Skull? Or do you think you'll see it? Or you just like trailers, which is okay, too. And Jordan says, you prefer to drive by observation. Tracing just feels icky. That's great, Jordan. What about it feels icky? Is it it just doesn't feel comfortable? It's okay. I laugh because I get it. I mean, I understand and I can relate. I know what you mean when you're talking about icky in some ways, I think. But I'm curious to know what you feel makes it icky. So somebody says the silhouette looks like a ghost. Kim Zari 10. So is that referring to this? So yeah, ooh. Halloween, spooky, right? Oof. Now, this is something I talked about before. I can mention this right now because I think maybe we have some new friends tonight. This is an example of exaggeration. This is something that you don't see as much in CG. That's changing. That started changing as early as Tangled, and was definitely followed through with Frozen, and they've kept that going at Disney. But a lot of studios don't necessarily concentrate on exaggeration as much as 2D does. Look at these hands. See how big these hands got? Here they're normal size. Here they got really big and swoopy, and they kept going like that until they stopped, and then they got back to their normal shape. And that's just exaggeration. And that's what you're seeing here with this ghostly looking pose. Is the hands are really stretched out, so when you play it at speed, it looks kind of like motion blur. If I were to play this right now, well, maybe you can see, it's kind of faded, I turned down the opacity, but maybe you can see that you don't really see those exaggeration poses all that much, and if you do, it's just like, oh, that's kind of cool, that's kind of fun. But you don't really see that those fingers are really long. It's just like a motion blur. If you imagine, if I were to take my hand and go like this really fast, you can't really see where that hand is. And so to compensate for that, you draw these exaggeration poses where the hand gets really big. And that was something they discovered way back in the 30s and 40s when they were still discovering animation and the rules and making up the rules as they went. And they said, well, we can do paint smears, we can do lines, like little exaggeration lines like that you see in still cartoons, or we can try exaggeration and see if that compensates for something that's moving so fast you can barely see it. So that's kind of what that is all about. That's why I have this kind of spooky ghost looking pose. Get on this a little tighter, draw it more clean. I've turned the center line smoothing really high so I can do this line without wiggling my hand too much. I know some people who prefer to just concentrate on making a really smooth drawing, and for me it's like, well, that's what that tool's for. It's there to kind of assist you so that you don't have to spend forever coming up with a smooth, clean line. Now, I could do that. That's what they paid me to do back in the old days with the mechanical pencils. Take a line like this and then just build it up little by little, just like that, until you've got the most perfect line you can possibly imagine. Drawing straights, drawing circles, but just drawing it and then leaving a feathered taper at the end and then building it up from there. And that's how you'd come up with one of those really clean lines. But you can see even here, I've got all these little divots in it. Now, when I was doing this for a living all day and I was grinding into the paper with a mechanical pencil, you can believe that I drew better than a vector line, better because I had more character than a vector line does. And that's what they paid us to do. Plus, there were no vector lines back then. Computers were still getting started. But now watch what happens if I take the smoothing really high. And again, if you've ever played with a program like this, you know this is a thing. But I'm just showing it because it's fun. If I now do that and I draw slow and I wiggle and I, make faults, boom, it's already corrected it a lot. If I go a little bit faster, it's corrected even more. If I really amp it up, and I can wiggle like crazy, and it's going to straighten it right up. So you just have to kind of find a balance where you're still getting a nice character to your line. So, if I try to do something really intricate right now, it's not going to let me do it. It's going to straighten it out and make it look terrible, or make it look strange, or just not how I want it to look. So that's something to think about. But I always have the smoothing up really high for broad details, and then bring it way down for really high for broad strokes, and then bring it down for detail work. That's just how I like to work. And then there are all sorts of tools for getting rid of ends and things. I will mention them as I use them, but right now I'm just cleaning up with an eraser. Cool, nice. Hello. Isn't that the cool thing about 2D animation? Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. That's why I like all styles of animation. It's because they each have their pros and cons. I mean, I like CG animation. I talked to the original animator who trained me, Dale Bear, and he had transferred over to Disney, had gone back to Disney, and he was doing 3D animation when that's all they were doing for a while. Well, they're still kind of only doing that. And he said, sometimes I don't feel like drawing. Sometimes it's nice to have the rig available and I just have to move it around and I don't have to worry about drawing every single frame. Now, I mean, if there's anyone who is a 2D person, it's Dale Bear. At least last time I talked to him, which is a while ago, some years ago now. But even he admitted, it's like, sometimes it's fun to just move things around. I think, and that's the way I feel, I think if you like animation, you like animation. Doesn't mean you don't have a favorite style. That's okay. But it's also okay to like just motion graphics. When I was a kid in the 70s, they had all sorts of experimental animation available to us via Sesame Street and other things like that. Schoolhouse Rock, which some people, even people who aren't that old, even they know about it because it's kind of still popular for some reason. Anyway, there were all these experimental forms of limited animation. I thought it was great. I thought it was all awesome. So from a very early age, I just liked motion graphics. And I really like drawn animation, but I also like other types as well. And there are certain types I don't particularly care for. I don't like it when it gets too experimental and it's just objects. I like character stuff. I like stuff with faces and trying to replicate human form. I like stuff that's amusing. I've talked about this before. I'm still waiting for someone to do an animated horror film in the States. I know that's you can find that in anime, and it's great. I love stuff like that. I was a fan of what's the big one? The Legend of the Overfiend. I don't know if I was a fan of it. It's pretty nasty, but I was intrigued. I thought, wow, that's cool. So I don't know. There's some other ones. I think that's the one with the spider with the woman's face. I don't remember. It's been a million years. But yeah, I know that keeps going. There are a lot more examples today. Castle Transylvania. There's a lot of examples of horror-related animation that's done today. A bunch of us in the States were waiting for people to do that in the States, to greenlight a project, and it never happened. I've said this before, we got PageMaster, oddly enough, that's a 90s film with Macaulay Culkin. I haven't seen that one in years. I don't even know if you could watch it if you wanted to, but maybe you could. But that was a film that had a segment, I think it was with a werewolf or something, and it was done really gothic, and we're like, yeah, that's awesome. Let's do some more of that. But it just didn't take off. So maybe somebody out there is going to be the first one to, probably Drawn Skull is going to be the first one to do a really good horror animated film that everybody loves, and they make more of them, and they keep making more, because I know there's a market for it, because I know lots of people who talk about it and say, boy, it'd be great if we could see some of that. And again, I know that anime, they do it all the time. And that's, you know, that's not to say that, oh, we need something that's better. No, we just need something different. We just need more people to keep doing stuff like that, and coming up with different alternatives so that people have choices. And I think choices are really cool. But anyway, so I'm just working on this thing, and maybe I'll turn this into something horror. Maybe that's what I'll do for next week. Suddenly this will turn into, I don't know, Avatar versus a skeleton. As I've said, it takes a long time to do this stuff, so I'll be happy if I can just get the skeleton done, or the Avatar done for next week, and then show you a new scene to start next week. Yeah, maybe that's what I'll do, is I'll make Avatar's final ink and paint. It'll be horror related somehow. We'll put something in there that will make it fun, instead of just straight fantasy or something. We'll find something to do with it. Monster. I've got another scene that I work on sometimes with a sort of an elfin superhero character, and that one has a monster, and I haven't finished that one off yet. It's almost there. So maybe I'll stick that monster in here. We'll see. But yeah, so one way or another, I'm going to see if I can finish this thing in time for next week's stream, and then start something new during next week's stream. I've got something in the wings. It's definitely not horror related. It's more sort of Disney princess related. Little piece of animation that I've been developing. So we'll see if anybody latches onto that one. And then I've got other projects I've worked on, which I'm going to be bringing back soon. But I'm determined to finish this one first. So we're almost there. Just another week on this. If all goes according to plan. But yeah, so speaking of horror in animation, another one was the movie Heavy Metal had zombies in animated form, and that, boy, that's a really cool sequence. Not a great film in my humble opinion, and it's really old. Again, I don't know how you'd even see it nowadays, but that one was notable for pioneering horror animation and doing it in a really cool way. That sequence, anyway, of that film is, I thought, was still got some merit. The rest of the film is pretty silly, very dated, very over the top, sexist, and I don't know. It just, I'm not going to say too much about it either way. I had a credit on it, apparently. Well, on IMDb, they said I worked on it, which is not possible. I wasn't even old enough to go see it when it came out, but I thought that was funny that they said I worked on Heavy Metal, and for years people would say, wow, you worked on Heavy Metal? No, I didn't. Sorry. And again, like I said, I'm not even sure anyone remembers that thing, and I haven't seen it in years and years, but it had a great sequence of horror with animated zombies. I thought that was really cool. And no one's done it since, at least in the States again. Or if they have, maybe you could tell me if you guys know something like that. And don't forget the thumb on the previous pose. Yeah, did I miss something? Yeah. What I'm doing right now is I'm just copying and pasting. So I'm taking this nose and I'm sticking it on this character. What I usually do, because I mess up on stuff like this all the time, what I usually do is after I'm not alive anymore, then I go through and I do a pass and make sure that I've nailed everything. But sometimes when I'm doing this stuff live, it's easy to miss little details here and there, but I appreciate when people point them out. That's great. It means you're paying attention. That's awesome. So let's see. Drawn Skull, have you seen Paranorman? Oh, I love that movie. I think it's really fun. Haven't seen it recently, so there's just so many things out there. But I remember loving that. I thought that was great. I thought the Box Trolls was really good. I watched them back to back because I'm like, man, these are great. I remember I was at a previous screening of Coraline. I was one of the first people who got to see it in 3D in a private theater with small group of people. And believe it or not, I will go on record as saying this. I fully admit to this now. I didn't like it. First time I saw Coraline, I just didn't get it. I was like, where's the story? What's going on with all this random stuff happening? And I thought the little girl was obnoxious, and I just guess I wasn't in the right mood for it. I watched it later, and unfortunately didn't get to see it in 3D again. I would have loved to do that once I realized how much I really liked that film. And just realized that I just thought it was amazing. Just thought it was an amazing cinematic achievement, and also really entertaining too. So I don't know what was wrong with me the first time I saw it. I reserve the right to admit that I'm not always tapped into things. You know, sometimes you're just not in the mood for things. I don't know, maybe it was a kiddie movie, or maybe I was just, like I said, in a bad mood. I don't know, maybe that's happened to you before, where you've looked at something the first time and you thought, yeah, I don't really care about that. And then you went back to it later and went, wow, that's actually my new favorite thing in the world. So that's how I felt about it, at least Coraline. But yeah, Paranorman, I liked that right from the start. I just thought it was great. So yeah, I agree. That's a really cool film, and something that I want to see again. Oddly enough, something that I saw when it came out and then I've kind of forgotten about was Tim Burton's feature version of Frankenween. I really liked the first one, and I saw that a few times, the short version. But I remember, I don't know, gosh, must be 7 years at least, maybe 8, since they did a full-length feature based on Frankenween. I thought that was fun. That kind of had elements of horror in it. I thought that was clever and funny at the same time. Had a lot of quirky stuff to it, and that kind of had a horror feel to it. Yeah, Paranorman looks like something Tim Burton would make. Yep, for sure. Yeah, I agree. It's something, to be honest, again, here I go talking about my opinions on stuff, but I kind of wish he'd go back to that. I don't know if you guys agree, but I feel like Tim Burton kind of lost his way making adaptations of things. So like Dumbo and Alice in Wonderland, which I know a lot of people like it, but I'm kind of a fan of the real Alice in Wonderland. I thought the film was visually cool and fun, but as far as I was concerned, it really wasn't a Tim Burton movie. It wasn't an Alice in Wonderland movie. It was just kind of neato visuals and fun ideas, but not one of my favorite things in the world. So I wish that Tim Burton would go back to making some original stuff based on the stuff that he's always done so well. And I agree, Paranorman would have been something like the kind of thing that he used to make. And I don't want to sound like old and cranky or anything. You know, it's like, oh, it was better in the olden days. But I just think it's more fun when he's doing his own style than when he's copying somebody else's style or doing a project like Dumbo, which is sort of a unnecessary project to begin with, in my humble opinion. But if people like it, hey, that's great. I don't have any judgment against people. That you like what you like, and that's what makes the world go round. And like I said, I didn't like Coraline the first time I saw it, and then boy was I wrong about that, and really did a complete 180 and came back around and became a huge advocate for that film. I almost worked for that company briefly when I was out of work. I considered going back to Oregon because that's where I'm from, and considered I had a friend who worked there and he said he'd probably I could probably get on. The problem is, here's one of my wise sage tips for people who are still getting into the industry or have an interest in getting into the industry, is this. It's a good thing to be able to travel because right now jobs are scattered all over the place, and you want to be able to go where the work is if you have the means and the interest in doing that. By the same token, if you go someplace and the work dries up, you're stuck there. So you either better be able to find your way back to wherever you want to go, or be able to wait it out until more projects come, or just, you know, it's just something to think about. What happens if I move to, not to throw anybody under the bus or anything, I know a lot of people who move to New Zealand to work for Weta, and I considered doing it briefly for the second Planet of the Apes movie because a lot of my friends were going there. And that's great as long as there's work, but what happens when the movie's over and if they don't need you anymore and they say, okay, that's the end of that. Have fun and good luck with your life, and we'll see you later. And that is what happens at the end of movies a lot, and it's nothing personal. It's just simply the fact that there's no more work, and they're going to pay you to do nothing. You know, that's you understand it from their perspective. If they don't have the cash to keep people on, they can't really keep people on. And so anyway, so it's something to think about when you're thinking about where you are going to end up working, that you want to be available and you want to be a good sport and move to places where the work is, but also you have to be realistic and think that if that work were to stop, would you still be happy there? And so just something to keep in mind. So Kinzari says, are you using a mouse to draw? I thought 2D animators use graphic tablets. Yeah. So this is for Kinzari. Yes, I'm using a pen. And if you can see this, I'm drawing on a tablet. Yes. I don't know if that question was for me or not, but yeah, that's what I'm doing. I did try drawing with a mouse years and years ago when I first, when 2D first kind of, basically with Flash, I would draw with a mouse because I didn't really have any other options, and it was terrible. I'm so glad that we live in a world like this where we can draw. And like I said, usually when I'm drawing and not live, I'll spend a lot more time on this stuff. One of the reasons I chose something like this was it lends itself well to doing quick drawings and doing them like this digitally. So in case you're curious, what I did there is I just turned on the onion skin. So I've got the onion skin and I've got my rough drawing underneath. If I take off the drawing underneath, you'll just see the onion skin by itself. So there I can see the drawing before and the one after, the one I'm currently working on. I can pull the onion skin so I can see lots and lots of drawings. Oof, what a nightmare that is, right? And then pull it back down so it's just a few. Same going the other way. I can see multiple drawings or just narrow it down. And then I have the ability to lighten these. I'm doing it right now just by how many frames I'm exposing, so I can make it lighter that way. But I can also go in and lighten up the opacity on those. And I can change the colors too. Right now they're Christmas colors, they're red and green. But this is what I've been working with, and it's working just fine for now. So I turn on the lower drawing, take a look, see what's going on. How much can I steal from other drawings? How much do I have to originate based on the rough? And then just kind of fill it in from there. So right now I'm just filling in the feet, which is really easy because they're not moving too much. So I just have to make sure and do a line in between a line, which we call in-betweens. And that's how I'm accomplishing this tonight. John Skull's mostly going to be working on horror and experimenting. Yeah, I thought you'd say that, John Skull. I thought that you would. And we're all waiting for you to come up with a great horror animation project so we can all watch it. And Jordan, you feel like the artists are their best when they do original stuff. Yeah, well, the thing is, Jordan, is everybody has to start somewhere, right? So original stuff, there's nothing truly original. Everything's been done in one way or another. My English teacher used to say that the Greeks and Romans have told every story that you could ever tell, and we're all just coming up with different versions of it. And I kind of see that. I kind of get it. But it's how the original spin that you put on an idea, that's what makes it yours and makes it original. And I've talked about that a lot. But taking, let's say the story of, I don't know, Jack and the Beanstalk, and the kid goes up to the castle and meets a giant and has a fight, takes the money, whatever. Well, what if instead of that, Jack, what if it was a mouse, a dog, and a duck? And out of that, you get Mickey and the Beanstalk, which is a Mickey Mouse cartoon that I used to love when I was a kid, where instead of Jack, it was Mickey, and then the giant was really dumb and had this kind of voice, in a cute way. It was really a fun character and fun to watch. And, you know, all of a sudden you've got a new version of Jack and the Beanstalk, a story that's been told roughly 650 billion times, give or take a billion or two. But, you know, somebody put their own spin on it, and Disney in this case, and made their own version and told it in a new way that was fresh, and people loved it. And that's where you see these remakes coming out. You know, if those of you who are interested in remakes or think about them or don't even like them, but the reason that they keep doing them is because they were good and people liked them and want to see those stories again, well, at least the successful ones. If successful remakes, they want to see that story again, presented in another way. So, yeah, it's all good. So, Jordan, you started with a mouse. Yeah, that's pretty scary, isn't it? I can relate to that. You've heard a lot of clicking. Oh, I'm probably clicking my keyboard. That's probably what you're hearing, the clicking going on. Or it might be, I don't know, maybe I'm going like this. But yeah, when I go over here and I turn on the onion skin, I do it with hotkeys. So boom, turning off the onion skin, boom, turning it on. I can also turn with hotkeys that I set up, turn this right side up. What I'm doing here with Control, so yeah, that's probably what the clicking is. What I'm doing is I'm able to rotate this whole scene so I can draw at any angle that's comfortable for me. And this may or may not look familiar to you, this icon that's on the screen right now. That is a drawing disc. It was composed of a circular platen with a hole at the top, so you could stick your thumb in there and rotate it like this. Nowadays I'm doing it with, I am doing this with my mouse, to be honest. But you can't hear that, I don't think, hopefully. So you spin it around with your thumb, and then below that, if I straighten it up now, below that was a ruler, and then you'd place your drawings. I don't think it'll let me draw while I'm doing this, so here, I'll make circles here. Here, and here. There, that didn't work out, did it? Here and here. Those were the pegs, and you'd place your drawings on top of those pegs and line them up, and that was a way of registering your drawings so that when you, still didn't get it. So when you had your drawings on the pegs, they'd stay lined up. And then you could take your drawings off the pegs and flip it and roll it and do all sorts of fun things with your drawings. But while you're drawing, while you're doing what I'm doing right now, they'd be lined up perfectly because you had one center peg and two outside ones that were square. The center one's circular and the outside ones are more square shaped. And the paper would be registered, so you just flop it on there and then keep it that way. And one of my first jobs was to use a hole punch and to punch paper. That was not a very interesting job, but it had to be done. And then we would buy paper that was already punched. I was real happy about that. And then I had another job, which was to check drawings. They called it checking. And you'd stick multiple drawings over the top of each other and line them up and make sure the registration was working, and then stick stickers, little stickers on the pegs so that the paper was really snug and didn't float around at all. And then when I was in-betweening, I would stick stickers on those pegs myself as part of the process. But anyway, and then the square part in between, that would be the light table area. It would be a plate of glass with a light underneath it, and then you could trace. When they were building Toon Boom, they wanted to make it as sympathetic to 2D animators who had worked in the business before. And I know people right now who are traditional 2D animators who are going to have to learn how to draw on computers, and so they wanted it to be as simple for 2D artists who'd done it the old way, the analog way, as they could. So they made it look like, oh, well, this is what we're doing, is we're doing it just like we did in the olden days, where we'd rotate the plate so that you could draw from a more comfortable angle. I happen to be right-handed, and I like to draw like this. My hand feels very comfortable drawing in that direction. So you'll see that I turn this occasionally, and then we'll draw something at an angle so that so that I can get at it like this. It'll be much easier to draw that way than to do it this way and try to go, wow, now I got to mount, but go from this angle and change, and that's the way we used to do it all the time. So I was really excited that you still can do that with this program. It makes it really very comfortable for me to draw in ways that I was familiar with before. The main difference is that you can't grind into the tablets. I think they're still working on that. But what they really need is to be able to use physically grinding away inside on the virtual paper. Frankly, most people I know who've learned to draw on a tablet, they don't need that anymore, and I don't really need it anymore. But as long as you have some resistance when you're drawing something, it helps. Like this is like drawing on glass, and it's like you're detailing something on glass, and you can see, you can get real sloppy with it. So having something that has a surface, which some tablets I believe have, that can't help but be helpful. But again, students I've taught, they're so used to this, they've never known anything else, and so they've gotten really used to it. And then there's some students I have who are not going to give up on paper ever, and they just prefer it. And again, it's all good. I have no qualms with any of it. But if you want to take our class, not only do you need to learn how to do Toon Boom, and we teach you, and maybe Jordan or someone, you can tell us if that worked out or not. But they give it to you as part of the class. So as long as you're in the class, you get to have Toon Boom. And I have mixed feelings about all programs, as they're all of them have their pluses and minuses. But I think Toon Boom's pretty good for the diverse things that it can do that replicate 2D animation really nicely. Things that I've talked about in other Twitch and YouTube and Facebook streams. So if you're ever curious, you can always go back and check out another one of those. But I will also probably talk about them again in the future as the tools are needed for whatever the mission is for the day. So Tron Skull is going to be the next horror icon in live action animation, so got it covered. Good to hear it. And you already got some fans here on the chat board. So and yeah, friction, Jordan. Yeah, it's important. Screen is slippery. I don't remember, Jordan, if you were more comfortable with paper or if you crossed over into the digital world comfortably. I know you were really good with Photoshop, so that's something that you were that I thought that you were really good at. But I'm curious to know if you actually felt more comfortable or equally comfortable, or how people who are kind of used to drawing on tablets, how you guys feel about it. Whether you think it's... Some people, I've actually talked to people who think that paper is actually harder because they're so used to drawing with a tablet. They don't understand the use or need to draw on paper when you've got all the tools. Like one of the things I'm doing right now is, I'm just copying and pasting this hand verbatim from the hand that follows. I'm going to make some adjustments to it. But boy, how nice to be able to get a bunch of stuff for free and then just have to make some tweaks here and there. So that's, and then now maintaining the size, maintaining the shape. I'm just going to change a few things because it was morphing a little bit, but it was a great starting point. That's not something we were able to do very well with paper. We used Xeroxing a lot. So we'd Xerox things and then trace over the top of them. So if we wanted to resize something, I remember I talk about this all the time. It's getting old, but a friend of mine had to go do some effects work on, I think it was Pocahontas, and so we got to go to the archives at Disney, the old famous archives, and we got to look up original fire scenes from Bambi, and then he just traced them off. And I don't think they even let you do that anymore. The artwork's too fragile and old. But at that time, 90-something, 95, 94, 95, yeah, we just went to the archive, checked it out, and there we were with original Bambi drawings with original fire scenes, and then just copied them for Pocahontas. So yeah, tracing can be your friend. It's not necessarily in 2D. It's not something that's like, oh, it's shameful to trace stuff off and copy and paste. No, it saves you time, and it will save you some work sometimes too. So take these parts of the hand and just use them, and let's see if I can just transfer them directly over, and then finish off with the fix up of the ends of the fingers. And so it still kind of saved me time. I mean, frankly, this thing's moving around so fast, I probably could have just drawn it at this point. Might have been faster, I don't know. But it's fun to just try it and see and show you some of the benefits of working digitally. The only thing that I recommend is just don't ever be afraid of technology. It doesn't mean you have to know everything about all softwares. People ask me all the time, what's the best software I should get? What should I get into? Should I do TV Paint? Should I do Toon Boom? Toon Boom's really expensive and it has all these different tiers and I don't know which one to get. And my recommendation is always just pick one. Just get started with one and go from there. Once you know one of them, the rest will start to come. And you'll find that the programs all sort of have similar things. They'll always have a timeline. They'll always have like a layer system so you can put things on top of each other. And, you know, just don't be afraid of technology because it's just going to keep changing and it's going to keep morphing. So you really just have to start somewhere, and not to discuss, you know, some of my peers who worked in the 2D analog business, but when things switched over to, or were gradually switching over to the digital world, so many of them were just afraid to try. And I would say, just try it. You probably will hate it at first. I hated it at first. I learned Flash and I was like, oh, this is just nasty for a lot of reasons. But the more I played with it, the more I began to realize it's just a tool. It's just one more way to do motion graphics. And once you know a little bit about it, you can make it do the things that you want to do and figure out other ways. It's all about creativity. To me is 99% problem solving. Well, I have this idea. How do I get this thing out there? How do I make it happen? Well, you got to start somewhere and try things, and you'll never know until you try it. And give it a fair shake too, because a lot of 2D people, they would go, again, I'm not criticizing those 2D people. A lot of them transferred really well, transitioned into digital realms, and some are still doing it now. So it's like everybody's got a chance. But it starts with not being afraid of the change and being able to embrace changes and go, all right, well, maybe what I wanted to do, I can't get paid to do it, but I can still do it. There's no law against doing the things that you love to do. And I push that all the time. You love doing paper cutouts, like actual paper cutouts and moving them frame by frame, go do it. Make a movie out of it, be successful, and everybody else will copy you. I say that all the time. I'm still waiting for somebody out there to do it. But I mean, that's kind of how Lucas the Spider went for my friend, is he was just doing the thing that he wanted to. I say that every week, but I say it because I want it, to get that message out there that you just do it. And maybe it won't be perfect, but it may end up being that thing that everybody's been wanting to see and waiting to see. You won't know until you try. So pick a software, just pick one, dive in and start practicing, because you've got to practice. Nobody popped out of the ether a genius, or if they were a genius, they needed to prove it, and they prove it by how you do things. Chuck Jones, he always said that there are, I don't remember the exact quote, something like there's 999 bad drawings before you get to the good ones. So start now. Start now and get them all out of your system so you can get to those good drawings. I always like that quote, even though I'm kind of butchered it. But so seems like you guys are chatting. I'll leave you guys to it. You're comparing notes. That's awesome. Prefer mouse clicking in 3D. Yes, I absolutely prefer mouse clicking in 3D. I've never graduated to a pen. Some people like it, some people don't. I've never seen that it makes a huge difference personally. It's the same thing. It's a mouse and a pen generally kind of have the same abilities, so it's just kind of what you prefer. I've heard people say it's more ergonomic to work with a pen. After working with a pencil, a mechanical pencil for roughly 10 years, I can tell you that it was how you held the pen that made a big difference. It's not necessarily the tool, it's what you do with it. Same thing with holding a mouse and getting that claw grip. You know, if you're clamping down on that thing all day, every day, for hours and hours and hours, I guarantee you're going to have problems. But if you hold it right, it doesn't really matter what you use, as far as I'm concerned. Ask somebody else, they'll tell you. It's like, you must never, ever, ever. I don't operate that way. I like to keep all options open and figure out what you like the best. So yeah, I'm the same way. Rushback, I use mouse with 3D. Just works for me. Digital is definitely more convenient. You love the goosebumps. That's cool. I'm sure you got lots of support in that. I'll let you guys discuss that. Clip Studio Paint, yes. A lot of people I know are using Clip Studio Paint as I believe it's more cheap, as an inexpensive alternative to some of these programs that are really for professionals. And I always say that about Maya as a program. The reason it's difficult to learn is because there's a billion ways to do a billion different things. And sometimes when you're starting out especially, you just want something simple that you can master quickly. As we used to say, Fisher-Price programs. And I did not find Flash or Maya or After Effects, which is another program I teach. I did not find any of those intuitive. And one of the reasons I teach them is so I can spare people the misery of having to learn them on their own, which is what I did. My understanding of Clip Studio Paint is that it's really fun and you can get up to speed on it very quickly. And if that is the case, I recommend doing that. And like I said, learn one of them, and then you're going to be on your way to learning others quickly. But you just have to start somewhere. So freeware programs, if they're out there, anything that's fun, maybe it's limited, well, you'll graduate to something better when you're ready. I say the same thing about people who want to learn piano. I know parents who want to go out and buy their kid the nicest keyboard that money can buy. And I always say, well, why don't you buy them something cheap? If they like it, they'll continue to play with it, and then you go buy something expensive. And I feel the same way about software programs. I started out playing a little toy organ that was like this big and had, I don't know, 15 keys or something. And my parents were convinced after a while that I really was into it and would be a good investment to buy an actual full-size keyboard. And it was. Whereas I know a lot of people who go out and they rush out and they buy the most expensive hot program and they play with it for a while and realize they don't really like it, and then that was money that they could have spent investing in something they really did like. So I always say be conservative, and as I said at the beginning of this rant that I'm currently in, don't be a tech chaser unless that's something you really like to do, which I never say never. Don't. But if you're the average person who just wants to get into this stuff, you can waste a lot of money and a lot of time chasing down the latest and greatest technology, when what you really need to do is sit down and learn your craft and get good at something, so that when the technology changes to the next thing, you'll be able to adapt. And being able to adapt is as important as any other skill when you're talking about jobs in CG graphics, which at this point, like I said, this is, this drawing that I'm doing, this is computer enhanced. I'm using computer graphics, the aid of computer graphics. So I call this CG animation in its own. What we do is we call the stuff that's done on paper, we tend to call it traditional. And somebody, I think it was at DreamWorks, somebody had coined the idea of tradigital. That means it's combining traditional elements with digital elements. I don't know who came up with that phrase, but we use it freely now. They obviously didn't copyright it or trademark it because we all use it. And I say that, something like this that I'm doing tonight, that's tradigital, using traditional techniques in a digital world. So anyway, that's my rant about Clip Studio Paint. And Jordan endorses it, and I believe Jordan. So if Jordan's tried it and loves it, then I think you're on the right path. And then Kim's already 10, you tried it, but not for animation. So you guys are going to try that. Let me know how it works. Come back and tell me all about it. And Rushback 99, you're going to pick up Maya. Or would yeah, I'm not sure what KEKW means, but and then Jordan's Blender Squad, nice. I don't know enough about Blender. I should know more about it, but I understand people who tried it really love it. I'll let you guys discuss it. And Cool. I love it when you guys compare notes on these things, because it's impossible for one person to know, but you guys do. You're out there learning about this stuff. So, Rushback, you found Maya pretty easy to learn on your own. Good. I'm glad to hear it. And I don't know whether you had previous experience with other programs or what you were trying to do. You know, I'm not sure what your learning curve was, but I always joke and tell people that when I learned Maya, I didn't even know what computers were. It was the late 90s, early 2000s. And somebody said, well, they've got the program at the studio. If you get yourself the tutorial book and sit down and go through the lessons, that's one way to learn. Without any other resources, that's what I had to do. So I sat down with this book that was about 1,000 pages long and started going through the tutorials, most of which were either cracked or not applicable to what I was trying to figure out how to do. So, I mean, they would tell you things like dynamics. The very first chapter is like, oh, make a rocket. Some people remember that one. Make a rocket and then have it shoot up into space and have a trail of dynamics sticking out of the back of it. And then do a great starfield background and ground plane and all that. Number one, it didn't look that good even if you finished it. And number two, it taught me all those things which I didn't really need to know about to keep my job. I just needed to know about animation. And all it was doing, if you can imagine, was it was going from the ground up. And it had to do it slow in and then move up. It probably had to do it in a dynamics way, like not even using traditional keyframes. I don't remember. But I remember thinking, oof, this is a joke. And it was really complicated. But then I made my own spaceship with my own little alien creature in it, and I had it sailing around through space based on what I knew, and took it and ran with it and had a great time. So I'm always a big fan of thinking outside of the box. Take the lessons that you get from tutorials or from wherever you get them, from YouTube, Vimeo, CG Spectrum, stuff we tell you about, and do your own versions of it. Now that you know how to do it, apply it to something you're interested in. Don't just copy the others, which teaches you how to copy. And I've told you earlier in this stream, I'm suggesting that you do just that. Copy other people and learn how they did it. But at a certain point, you want to go off on your own tangents and do your own characters, do your own ideas, and think about ways that you can use the technology to do your own projects. And so that by the time you actually get to a point where people are looking at your work, you can say, see what I can do? Give me money and I'll do even more of it. And again, money always becomes a factor. Nowadays, you could do a short film without any money at all. I mean, if you've got the software already, I don't count that. Money usually pays for people to help you with your film. And if you do have people help you with your film, you should ask, or your project, whatever. I'm just saying film because it's easier. I think you guys know what I'm talking about. But your project, it's easier to get people to help you on a project if you offer something in return. And I found that out the hard way many times. Frankly, I wanted to do it all myself and about killed myself doing my own projects. And then they ended up looking not as good because I tried to do it all myself and I got tired and had limited abilities in some cases. But if you want people to help you with your project, you got to offer them something in return to get them to stay and help you finish, because it is work. And I always tell people that when they ask me, oh, could you do me a drawing? Could you make me a little clip of animation, with me as an avatar character? Not this one, but an actual avatar of them. And, just kind of knock out some animation for me. And I always say this in my classes, is when you're just getting started, it doesn't hurt to do some freebies now and then to prove what you can do and show people. But at a certain point, you have to figure you're doing something for a living. And to give it away is like saying, oh, hey, to your tax person or whoever, your person who cuts your hair or something, and saying, hey, could you just do this for me for free just because you think it's fun? And it's like, well, as fun as it is, it's my work. It's what I do for a living. It's how I make my money. And if I do it for free, I'm undercutting the actual jobs that I would otherwise be paid for, and undercutting other people who do this for a living and expect to be paid for these wondrous services of making drawings and making cartoons, which is something not everybody can do. So when you do stuff for free, you're not only cutting yourself out of a job, but you're also cutting other people who do this for a living out of a job. So think carefully the next time somebody says, hey, do you want to just do something real fun for me? Just do it for free. Think real carefully about that and decide for yourself how you feel about it. Again, there's no right or wrong answer, but those are some considerations to think about. So, some of you guys are talking about Blender. That's awesome. Very cool. Love it. And Jordan says you can produce 3D assets in software of your choice and import it. Yeah, that's, well, I'll talk about that in a sec. Let's get through stuff. You can make your poses with a puppet. Yeah, that's what I would use Blender for the most. That's what I use Maya for a lot for 2D. Is using it for reference. So I create my own animation reference. I did another scene in on a stream where I'm still working on it, but where I used CG animated reference that I set up and then imported it into Toon Boom and then drew it as 2D. I'm still working on that one. I wasn't real thrilled with how it was turning out, so I abandoned it and moved on to stuff like this, which is a little more, I think it's maybe a little more rewarding looking. That one was just an experiment, and I'm like, could this be done? It could. So now I'll do it again, and I'll do something more visually interesting, I think, next time. But yeah, that's what I would use Blender for if I used it. But since I'm pretty proficient in Maya, I get everything I need from that. I don't need to do it all in one. Just do it in Maya, bring it into Toon Boom. Works for me. I get a little wary too because I think it's Blender that has a lot of presets. And so my recommendation, again, from the wise old sage animator, from Gandalf the animator, or animation person at least, is be very wary of things that are presets. Sometimes these things give you freedom, like I'm talking about here a lot, cut and paste. You know, that gives me the freedom to not have to draw things over and over. It just makes sense to cut and paste certain things so you don't have to draw them a million times and draw them wrong. But sometimes you get stuff for free and it isn't really helping you. So if Blender shows you how to pose something and then you copy the pose that they give you, first of all, imagine everybody's using that pose. So how original or interesting is it going to be? And second, what did you learn about drawing anatomy by copying something that already is built for you? Isn't it better to look at something in the real world and copy that, which is how it's been done for years and years and years, and learn to be an artist? And I can tell you, I quit art school because I didn't think I was going to be able to get a job. And I know a lot of artists from Europe who I worked with at DreamWorks, who did not quit art school. And boy, they are incredible artists, and they always will be. And that's because they really learned. They learned their stuff. They went to art school, good art schools, and they really learned. They didn't go just to get a degree, just to pay their money and get a degree so they could say they had it. They went because they wanted to, because it's a tradition of art, like in France and stuff. There's prestige there. It's like, I want to be a better artist, so I can say I'm a good artist, and not just because I need to get a job necessarily. I'm not saying that philosophy is better or worse. I'm saying it just is a thing. And I think I could have used a little bit more of that and a little less of, well, I just need to get a job fast. So Blender, by giving you those poses that some artists actually set up for you, that's kind of skipping a step. And while the immediate results might be fun, in the long term, does that make you a better artist? Does it give you the skills that you'll need to compete with other artists who've gone the long way around? I don't know. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying think about this stuff, because it's stuff that I dealt with in my career. And they're, like I said, I kind of wish I'd stuck it out with art school and gotten better. It would have made me more competitive, and would have been like the equivalent of learning the scales before playing an instrument, which I did do. It just helps you to improve your work, keeps you competitive, and makes your work more satisfying because you have more tools at your disposal. I will never forget an animator who was working with us on, I think it was Flushed Away, and asked, well, where's the button you push to make it talk? It's a button to push to make it talk. And I think a student I'd worked with once that worked with Blender said, well, "Where's the button that makes the animation, makes the character walk forward?" I'm like, well, isn't that kind of the whole point of being an animator? Is you sort of want to be, working on that stuff? Maybe not. I mean, maybe it'll change, and if it changes that way, then more power to you. But for me, it's like the fun of it is the challenge of how do I make a character look like it's walking, even though it's just drawings. And that is what animation is, ooh, how can I make this even more challenging, more interesting, and do things that haven't been done before or that others have done that were hard. But now it's my turn to figure out how they did it and have the fun that they had when they were learning about this stuff. So the process is hopefully the goal, is enjoying the process. If you're just doing things for fame and fortune, I say this all the time, and maybe people don't believe me, but yeah, number one, there are ways to do that. You can go, try to become a celebrity or somebody who does something notorious. That's fine. But I don't know what you end up with when you have that. Maybe money, maybe not. But if you do the things that you love, then you spend the whole life that you're here on the planet doing the things that you really love doing. And I can honestly say that while I was invested in my career in animation, I was having the time of my life, and it was the best job on the planet. I can't imagine doing anything else. And how many people do you know who can say that? It's like they love their work. Maybe a lot of people can say that. I don't know. I've never done a poll, but I certainly felt privileged that I got to be one of these people who says, I really, really love my job. And when times got tough, that's one of the reasons I stuck with it, is because I loved it. I thought it was a great way to spend my time. And I love learning new things and new challenges. So, so that's just my pitch for not necessarily using free tools, even though they've been given to you. And it seems like it will make your life easier. Sometimes, yeah, it is there to make your life easier. Like I said, with copy and paste in Maya and this program, why would you draw something over and over again that's supposed to look like it wasn't drawn over and over again? You don't want it to look shimmery and have an imperfect line. You just want it to hold on the screen while other things are moving. Well, then copy and paste it. That's a small sacrifice to make. It's not, you're still animating from scratch at that point. So it's just something to think about when you see free tools that do all the work for you. Well, then, why do you want to be an animator if you want something to be done for you? Now, if you don't want to be an animator and you just need something to move in your scene to help sell the background that you created or something, that's another story. That's another reason those tools exist, is to facilitate stuff like that. Now here I'm using the cutter tool to cut off the ends of lines. I drew too far on purpose so that I could do this. So I'm going to cut away and just make those lines disappear and just slice through them, and then they go away. And that's one of the many cool tools that a program like this has that makes life easier. I can erase those lines, but I can also go through and just cut off the ends of them. And by doing that, save myself a lot of work erasing or extending. That's another thing that I've done a couple times tonight, is extended a line a little bit more. Here I can take this. I wouldn't normally, because it's just silly to get this detailed about something that's moving this fast, but I can take the end point of this line and switch it up just a little bit so it blends in better with the line that it's connected to, using vertices points like you do in Illustrator. So anyway, so that's just one small little thing here. Did an apprentice as a draftsman use case. Oh, that's cool. I love hearing about stuff like this. People who have actual on-the-job training, apprenticeships, internships. That's really cool. Car part for the plastic industry. Nice. And I can't recommend that enough too. Is look around. You'll realize there are all sorts of jobs out there, things that you can do that you would never even dream of. What about working like in a hospital and doing animated videos for demonstration purposes? That's a job. I remember when I was thinking about getting into sculpting, they said, well, you could do dental sculpts of teeth. I thought, oh no, that's an idea. Not only that, but it ended up being a really high-paying idea. Unfortunately, I lost my interest in the medical field early on, and focused more on the arts than the medicine. But never would have crossed my mind that that was an artistic job that you could do. That, again, by the way, paid really well. That was in the medical field. So think outside the box, do research, look around, ask friends, talk to people, get into groups, and ask others, well, what do you do? How did you get into your work? Which is exactly what you guys are doing here tonight. That's awesome. Luigi Gutierrez, hello. What's the project that you ever enjoyed the most? I assume that's for me. We've got a lot of fun things happening in the chat tonight, so I'm not 100% sure all the time. But if you're asking me what my favorite projects were, my favorite 2D animated film of all time to work on was The Road to El Dorado. I drew Miguel every day for, it seemed like a year and a half. Maybe it was more, maybe less, but it was a pretty long time. And as far as I'm concerned, I could keep drawing that today. I just loved working on that film. It was fun. The crew was fun. I thought the movie ended up being really fun. I was really sad that it didn't take off initially, but I'm really excited when people tell me that they like it now. And I know a lot of people like cosplay or do fan art for it, and it makes me really happy. It's like the work that we did paid off. So that was probably my favorite 2D film. The one I believed in the most was probably Spirit of the Simulian. I worked so hard on that I actually got sick. Got shingles by the end of it because I pushed myself too far. But that's because I really believed in it, and I really was astounded that we were able to pull together what's basically an art film, where the artistic integrity came before the commercial value of it. So that was a big one. What else? In the 3D world, CG, my favorite film of all time was Cabin in the Woods, because it was so much freedom on that movie, and we just had a lot of laughs. And the guy that was my supervisor, who's a big person at Island now, still a friend, he and I just had so much fun, and I got to work with Michael Hazel, who's the most brilliant creature effects animator I've ever worked with, and didn't really know him that well. I don't know that anybody does. He's sort of a hermit, but just a fantastic animator, and his reels online, you can look him up and you'll see what he does, and you'll see why I'm impressed and why we all learned from him on Cabin in the Woods and Life of Pi. The Life of Pi was one of my favorite films to work on because it was just such a wonderful project. And I was intrinsic in it, being one of the supervisors. It was the nature of that film. It's kind of a sad, serious, deep film, and it was a tiger. It was wonderful to work on, but it was a tiger, and I was a supervisor, so I didn't do a lot of animating specifically. I animated a lot more. I watched it recently, and I was like, wow, I can't believe how much I actually animated on that film. I thought I just supervised and didn't get my hands dirty. But Cabin in the Woods, man, I'm all over that film, and had a really good time working on it. And we were working on it in the fall, so it was like now it's like getting close to Halloween. In fact, I think we got laid off right after Halloween or around then. And I thought, oh, perfect timing. Laid off meaning until the next project. We just took a break and then come back for the next one. And while that was going, Alvin and the Chipmunks 2 was going, a film I was not interested in. And I was so excited that I got to work on a scary movie in the fall, the gloomy fall and Halloween time. So there's no question that was my favorite. And Matt, who I worked with, my supervisor, and I both joke, it's like, if we could still work on that right now, we would. It's just working on a horror film with digital monsters. Talk about a dream come true. And they left us alone. They let us do just about whatever we wanted. So to answer your question, that was for Luigi Gutierrez. Hopefully that's how you pronounce your name. Those were my favorite films, but I've enjoyed almost all of them. I shouldn't say this because it sounds negative, but there are a couple films I worked on I did not enjoy. But those were for, I'm not going to say which, but I've said it before. You can check out other streams or prod me enough, maybe I'll tell you. I don't think it would hurt anybody's feelings, but there were films where I was not happy in general, so I can't really blame the films. But projects I just didn't believe in or was still finding my way on, those are harder in general, I think. But films where you're really deeply involved and where they leave you alone and let you do your work, or I really appreciate your work and encourage you to just keep going further. Another one was Cirque du Freak, the Vampire's Assistant, or something like that. I don't know what they finally called it. It was a great movie while we were working on it, but when they cut it together to release it, they ruined it. If you like it, I apologize, but it was a much better film in the dailies. And they let me do a whole scene with these little 7 mutants in robes. They were called the Tinies, I think. And they just said, go for it. Just all we ask is that you make it gross and make it kind of funny and interesting. And I'm like, well, you've come to the right place. That's the sort of stuff that I really like to do. And that's what I gave them, and they were really happy with it. And they just let me work on that. I did it all summer long, and I was just in heaven working on these disgusting little robe-clad mutant vampire midget things, whatever. I don't know what the PC term is. I apologize. Little people that were formerly vampires. Anyway, great. Thank you. If you're already gone, Kim's already. Thank you for joining us. Hope to see you again sometime, and hope you enjoy your CG Spectrum experience. And got some love in the class. Made some friends. Nice. Good night, Sherry. Thank you for joining us. I always appreciate seeing you here. And just rush back. Just wanted to do something that will get me closer to the animation industry. An apprenticeship standard in Switzerland. That sounds fantastic. Rush back to doing an internship and being located where you are. Yeah, no, we're all excited to hear about that. A lot of us are in the U.S. and that's cool. And then Kim's already here. You're still around here. You're never going to leave. It's too addicting. Oh, I like hearing that. Well, welcome to our friends from Switzerland. Love hearing about it. And love to hear more about it. It's too early for this. Yeah. Well, to us, it's getting late. So it's all relative. I used to work with people from India, and I would start with them on their Monday mornings, which were around like 10 o'clock at night on Sunday. So I feel like working with international students, which I do a lot, which is one of my favorite things to do actually, is it's a little bit like working on an airline. Time kind of loses its meaning, other than you get tired eventually and you have to go to bed at some point. But I really love the idea that it's the beginning of your day somewhere. It's the end of our day here, but it's all good. And when I work late, which I do towards the end of the week, I work very late hours, and it's like, well, that's my working day. And I have no problem with that at all. I like it. I'm a night owl by nature. But sorry it's so early for you guys. That is a bit much. So, yes. Oh, great. Well, Luigi, I'm glad to hear that you're enjoying these things. As I always say, if there are things that you're interested in, I'm always happy to talk about them. So feel free to bring those things to these live streams, and I'm glad to share as well. You may have noticed that you can share stuff. I don't know on whichever platform you're on, depends. Some are on Twitch, some are Periscope, some are scattered around, but hopefully we can find a way to share eventually on one of them. We'll share what the messages are, and you guys can meet each other. And that's a great way to network. I talk about networking all the time, and the way to do it is to talk to people who are trying to get the jobs that you're interested in getting, and ask them how they're doing and how they did it, or if they've learned anything. Tonight you guys have been talking about different software programs. That's networking, you guys. That's all it comes down to. What it isn't is being phony and trying to get somebody to give you something for free. So approaching somebody who's a professional and saying, hey, can you get me a job? So you kind of want to try to, in fact, don't try to kind of avoid that at all costs. That is not how you network. Networking is, if anything, it's about, I have something that you want, professional, and or I'm really proud, excited about the things that you've done. Tell me more about it, and I'm interested in your work, and make it worth the while of the professional. And who knows? Maybe you end up being friends or something eventually. But a great way is just to meet other people who are looking for jobs just like you are, and hearing what their stories are and how they're getting along. So I can't recommend that enough. And like I said, we're doing that a little bit tonight in these streams. We do that when friends show up and have stories to share in the chats. So great. It's great to see everybody today, right now. And like I said, next week I'll be coming back with some more Halloween stuff for those of you who are interested in Halloween. Today I've just got a few things here and there. I think I've shown this before, but in case anybody hasn't seen this yet tonight, so here's Jack, who's sitting over here on the side dancing away. And we'll be back next week with friends who will also be joining. We've got about 10 minutes left. I was on YouTube and changed to Twitch. Fair enough. We've got about 10 minutes left, so I'm just wrapping up my drawings here, and then we'll be done with another stream session for the day. But there's still time if you had any final thoughts, anything you were particularly interested in tonight while I finish up this last drawing and then shut it down for another Twitch stream. As usual, like I always say, please feel free to come back next time. Bring your friends, bring your interests here at the same time for 2 hours on this day, wherever you happen to be, and this time, wherever you happen to be. Do this for a couple hours. We'll try to bring different projects every week, or continue to finish a project that I started the week before. Little two-parters every now and then, just so you guys can see the process. But mostly I feel like I'm here to answer questions and talk about whatever it is you guys are mostly interested in, particularly things like, how do I get a job, or how do I put my portfolio together? What are some things to think about as I'm going out into the real world? And what are the things that I'll face? What are the things I should be thinking about? So it's all good, but anything that you guys are interested in learning about, I'm here for you on these streams. And then obviously we're pushing the fact that we've got a whole school to assist you, CG Spectrum. We've got a whole school. If you go on their website and you're interested in the classes, you can fill out a form, and they'll get right back to you and answer any questions you have about the freebie programs that they offer, and some of the other disciplines that they have on offer for classes, other things that they do. There's a whole spectrum of things that CG Spectrum offers, so don't feel like you're limited to any one thing. If you're interested in something other than 2D animation, or like I said, in 2D animation itself, we're going to have some new developments coming soon. So keep posted, keep checking back the website, and you'll see that there'll be all sorts of new developments coming pretty soon. You might want to be interested in those things. But there are other live streams as well. So if you're interested in the streams, feel free to check out the menu that is usually posted on whatever website you're currently watching this on. And we posted at the end, I think, of the stream, there might be a schedule that you can look at. But again, just check out the other videos and you'll see stuff that you might be interested in. But I'm always excited to have people check out the 2D stuff and talk about it. Thanks, Jordan. I appreciate it. So I've got that pumpkin. I've also got this one. So I'll bring back some artifacts next week. I got a pumpkin. I've got an owl. Not too exciting, but I promise next week I'll have some more interesting artifacts of Halloween to share. But yeah, the pumpkin you're referring to obviously is my friend Jack, who dances. Ta-da! Again, that was just done with the rigging tool in Toon Boom. We'll talk about more of how that's accomplished another time. I might bring that one in next week and show you how I did it. It's very simple to do this in Toon Boom. And once you know the trick, you can do all sorts of crazy things. I also don't know that this is the best looking thing in the world. I did this really fast, and I just wanted to do it to show that it could be done. But yeah, Jack's got legs. Unfortunately, they're kind of rubbery looking legs, but that's just because I did it really quickly, just to prove that it could be done. But yeah, that's Jack. Jack will be back next time. So now to review the final moments, in case anybody is just joining us, I've been working on cleanup for this. I'll turn off the rough layer, and you can just see what the cleanup looks like so far. Again, I will probably go back and fix some of this stuff up. When I'm doing it online, I let stuff go and don't worry about it too much. But when this is done, it should be very smooth, very clean. The volumes should look like they're all being maintained. It should look as if this is one drawing and not a series of drawings. And if that is the case, then I've done my job well. If not, then I'll go back and fix things like that. Actually, that's not very nice. Let's do it nicely. There we go. Got a little curve on it. So little details like that that makes it look like it's all one. It's still not very nice. Amp up the smoothness and let Toon Boom do it for me. So little things like that are what I was looking for the cleanup pass for this is maintaining volumes. I think the hands probably got a little too big. Might fix that later. Also might not matter. But when I post these things, I find that there are a lot of people out there quick to point out every single little flaw, so I want to do a nice job with it. Even though I'm just doing this for fun, I'm not doing it for a job. Trust me, if I was getting paid to do this for a job, I would be working a lot more on making the details absolutely perfect. But for this, it just needs to be good enough so that it doesn't look too obvious. And then just to review, this was the rough animation, which I'll make it darker in case you didn't see this when I showed it earlier. But this is how the rough animation looks. When I've done the cleanup pass and I have all the keys and breakdowns and in-betweens represented from the rough pass, it is likely that I will add even more drawings and make it look even more smooth. I may take this all the way to ones if it's worth it. Won't know until I get there. It's a pretty simple character. It's pretty easy to draw. So I may take this into the realm of more drawings on ones before I'm done with it. We'll just see how much energy I have, how much time I have. I really want to finish it and get on to something else. And then this, again, in case you missed it, this is the original. This I did many years ago and thought, well, I'd like to take this further and give it more overlap and follow through, which I did in previous weeks. And then start addressing things like the volumes and the feet placement and stuff so that when I clean it up, it looks really sharp. Well, for Jordan, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate you saying so. You can see the difference. And I don't know if you can see them over the top of each other, if it's obvious or not. But I changed the timing of it and I changed the looseness of it. So if you look at things like the sleeves, look at the back of the cap, look at the robes, look at the bottom of the cape, the cloak he's wearing, and then look at the feet placement. See how they move around in the original version. Now, if you compare it to this one, see how the feet are more locked off and he takes a little step. See how the cloak on his feet is moving a little more like cloth. Definitely the sleeves have a little more bounce. They're maybe changing volume a bit. I'm probably going to have to fix that later. They get really big and then they get small. But the back of his cap, I've made that more loose and floppy. And right now in the cleanup pass, if you look at that, you'll see I'm still making changes. I've made his cap smaller, made it a little bit smaller in the back so that it matches the first frame. That's all part of the cleanup pass, is just making sure the volumes stay consistent. So yeah, I'll probably go in here to some of these drawings where his cloak got really long and big and floppy, and maybe knock those down a little when I do the cleanup pass. It's much easier to do stuff like that when you're doing cleanup. This is a tie down of a rough that you're looking at. Yeah, and he moves snappier too. He's moving faster and more. It's just a lot more how I wanted it to be in the first place, but I did not have the skills to do it. Part of the reason I'm showing this over and over is so you guys can develop your eyes. And as Rushback says, now we need the fire. Yeah, so I'm hoping to have some kind of cool little effect. Like I said, I'm maybe going to go for a Halloween or just monstery Dracula's castle feel to it instead of the old sort of fairy tale look that it currently has. But yeah, so by looking at this one and then looking at it and comparing it to this one, my hope is that, part of animating is just training your eye so you can see the difference, so that you can make your animation look exactly as you want it to look, and so you know the difference. And you're not bound by your limitations. So anyway, here we go. Let's see if I can do this. I don't know. It's kind of hard to compare these two, but hopefully you get the idea that the original one is this one that's kind of yellow is the original. It's just not quite as dynamic as this one. It has a lot more to it. And then the cleanup pass will have a lot more to it even still. This is how the cleanup pass looks right now. It's not going to look too good because there's just not enough drawings. But already you should be able to see that, because I followed the roughs with my keys, and especially if I zoom out a little bit, it should look a little better. Then it's coming together slowly but surely. So I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to start saying goodnight. Here's Jack and I say goodnight, and I hope you have a pleasant rest of the day, wherever you happen to be, and a pleasant rest of the week. Would love to see, like I said, see you again next time, or perhaps you can join the other streams. Maybe we'll even see you as a student in one of my classes in the 2D department at some point. But regardless, it's been a real pleasure today, and I've really enjoyed this, and hope you guys got something out of it too. And again, have a great time, and talk to you next time. See ya.